I'm Fern.
And I'm Fern.
We're the Ferns. And this show is called Literally Between Two Ferns.
And this Fern, who's the expert in analytics,
we bring together the brightest minds in analytics, and I ask them questions.
and I listen.
She listens well,
I try.
and she answers questions.
I try to.
Sometimes she asks questions.
I try that also.
She's good at it.
I try that too.
She's very good.
Thank you.
She's my sister.
She's my sister.
We love each other.
And we're between the two Ferns.
Literally.
Literally.
Welcome, Andrew Mundell. Or do you prefer Andy?
I'll answer to anything.
Okay, good. Andrew Mundell, you're in data security. Could you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, that's right. And thanks so much for having me in this lovely Brooklyn basement on the hottest day of the year. I work for a company called Sophos. We make IT security products for the network, encryption, and endpoint via antivirus protection.
And your Twitter following is?
I can't find.
I thought we discussed Twitter was. Yeah, we're not doing that. We're not talking about Twitter.
Is that because of an identity thing, or
Well, we get
your
asked.
data security identity?
I get asked a lot if, I'm a spy. I have
James
this.
Bond.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of.
Oh,
Kingsman.
great, thanks for that. That's Bond, please. Only Bond, yeah. That's kind of what I was going for. It fits in with the persona of working for an IT security company as well.
Are you willing to start a Twitter account? I sort of need all the hype I can get around this show and the event that we're trying to promote.
Oh,
Accelerate.
sure, yeah.
Maybe you want to tweet while we're talking.
Yeah, let's do that. I have my phone right here.
Okay, yeah. All right, set up the account and, I'll just ask you questions and hashtag FernFern, hashtag Accelerate, hashtag TDWI.
It's a lot of hashtags.
A lot of hashtags, but, you got to get into it fast, man, okay?
Okay, we'll do it. I'll do it.
You
I'm
know,
doing it. Yep.
This is fast moving.
Yep.
Okay, I think data security is fast moving too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the more recent things that we're seeing in terms of antivirus and malware. It's definitely an interesting challenge to see how we protect our customers against all of those threats.
How do you use machine learning to do that?
We're using machine learning, specifically deep learning, not only to hashtag accelerate the way that we respond to threats, both from malware and from URLs, but to do that more accurately and taking up less resources on our customers' machines.
How do you deal with data prepping and data sourcing?
Yeah, we're big believers in garbage in, garbage out. And it's really important that the samples that we take and that we process through the model are as realistic as possible. So when we're collecting samples from the wild and analyzing them, we want to make sure that it's as wide a variance of those samples and as realistic of a data set as possible.
Wild, like unicorns in the wild? You have no idea what I'm talking about?
Unicorns? No. Unicorns, interesting. I guess that explains this.
It's all magic. How do you feel about dirty data?
We think it's really important to have the largest collection of appropriate samples. So when we're looking at malware and looking at malware analysis, we see lots of organizations use machine learning against small subsets of data. Those don't always give the level of protection that we want to. So we think it's super important to have as wide a variance in those samples as possible, both for individual malware files, but also things like malicious URLs.
So dirty data is good data. What about the cloud?
We see lots of customers not really understand the full security implications of cloud. There's a thought that the cloud is either inherently secure or insecure, and really it's neither, it's neutral.
Fern, does that make sense with your audit background?
Well, that was 100 years ago, but it's very complicated.
Yeah, interesting. I was thinking about clouds and the fact that it's cloudy in Seattle, and that's where Accelerate is going to be.
What is Accelerate?
Accelerate is our 3-day event that's going to be held in Seattle in mid-October, October 16th through the 18th. And it's all about helping people like analysts, data scientists, executives, engineers fast-track their path to analytics success. What's your view on open source and security?
Open source is interesting. It's, in theory, more secure because it's open. So security researchers are freely able to analyze the code and find and fix vulnerabilities.
Do you use open source in your products?
Yes, we use some open source components, OpenSSL being one of them.
Interesting. Okay, thanks, Andrew. Really appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Welcome to Literally Between Two Ferns. Ross, how's your morning going?
I have a pair of funky plastic glasses hanging off my shirt, so I think that's all you really need to know.
Yeah. Well, we're
Looks
happy
good.
about that, yeah.
Good.
So, you have quite a Twitter following. I think it's something like 97.
9709.
Wow.
How does that feel?
Well, they're not just a Twitter following, they actually follow me around in real life, too. But it's good that they're on Twitter sometimes also.
That must be a burden.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Those are the people
Makes
banging
finding an
down the
Uber
door.
harder, yeah.
Okay, well, I hope that you're going to tweet now during the interview. That would be great.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
Hashtag Fern.
Fern.
Yeah,
Which
or-
one is the evil twin between you two? That one. Okay, it's good to know. So I'll watch my back coming
You
from
need
this
to.
direction. Yeah.
Hashtag Fern, or hashtag TDWI, or hashtag Accelerate.
Okay,
Okay.
those are all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let them know.
Okay, good. Accelerate, the world's fastest way to accelerate your career in analytics, happening in Seattle in October.
Okay,
Okay, so
All right.
you'll remember to do that for us.
I'll try to remember.
All right, we're going to talk about a lot of hot topics at Accelerate, and we'll talk about one here too. Let's talk about machine learning.
Okay,
Do
great.
you think that's a hot topic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We're really seeing it take hold in many different industries, lots of different applications, from media and entertainment, where we're seeing companies leverage it to glean emotions in terms of what focus group viewers are seeing for TV pilots, to warehouse applications where they can spot different objects and making sure things are where they need to be, or if certain workers are in danger.
What's the most exciting thing that you're seeing? I mean, you think it's all hype, or you think it's like for real?
Oh, no, it's absolutely for real. I mean, the pace of rollout may still be pretty early, but the applications I think are pretty exciting. And I think that it gets even more exciting when you blend it with other applications, other emerging technologies. So, we're seeing, for example, that future headsets will use artificial intelligence to better understand their surroundings, so that when they map the room, they don't just know that there's an object there, they know that there's a couch. And those applications can take advantage of knowing that it's a couch, in having, say, an animated character sit there.
Interesting. Well, what about this notion of anyone being able to do machine learning? I mean, those examples you just gave, yeah, they're exciting, but they're sort of, they're out there.
They are.
Which is good. But, a lot of the vendors out there think that sort of anyone and his brother can just sort of plop a machine learning algorithm into an application and off they go. Do you think that's a good idea?
No, I mean, it's certainly not at that point yet. Although that said, we are seeing new tools come into the market that allow a smartphone, for example, an unconnected smartphone at that, to use the native processing power to do image recognition.
What do you see as the difference between machine learning and deep learning? Everyone's talking about deep learning, and sort of machine learning's been around for a long time, right? I mean, decision trees, those
Right.
have been around since the 90s. I remember using them back then. I'm dating myself. But, some of these deep learning algorithms are new. And what do you see as being, such the breakthrough in deep learning?
My opinions on that mirror other Ferns.
Well said. What about in business circles? What do you see machine learning being used for? We got the image recognition and emotion, and certainly that's cool. Anything else that you're seeing that's exciting?
Well, certainly a lot of applications in MarTech and AdTech, learning more about the customer. I think there is an opportunity to bridge some of those marketing technology applications to get a better customer understanding, and may eventually have ties into some of the more exciting image recognition, facial recognition kinds of applications. So consider that it's a bridge of online and offline behavior. Online and in mobile, you learn more about the customer, and when they come into the store to perhaps use a kiosk to place an order, you already know something about their frame of mind based on getting a sense of their emotional state. Like, you could view the extreme excitement in my face right now to be here.
You think it's okay that someone that doesn't understand how the algorithm works can just plunk it into an application? Does that seem good to you?
What could happen? Robot apocalypse?
Thanks, Ross.
My pleasure.
Lots of interesting insights.
Very interesting.
Thanks so much.
Welcome to Literally Between Two Ferns, Claudia.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you again. What's the company that you work for? Tell us a little about it.
So I joined about 7 years ago a New York-based, back then, startup in the advertising technology space called Distillery, originally called Media 6 Degrees. And it's an example of kind of this new wave of data mining and machine learning making itself into industries where you possibly would never expect to see them, advertising being one of them, where the core value proposition is really making sure you find the right people, make advertising relevant to the person who sees it. So they lured me away from IBM Watson, and the rest is history.
And you have close to 3,000 Twitter followers, Fern.
2704.
Do you think we'll get up to 3,000 now with this show?
We could do that, yes.
Yeah.
I'd be very happy to see that.
Well, you're a data scientist, so if anyone wants to figure out how to game the system, you can do it.
Yeah, possibly could, but I think we should leave it on its own and see where it leads us.
If you want to tweet, you can talk about hashtag Accelerate, hashtag TDWI. You know, that's why you're here, right?
Perfect.
We're talking about this Accelerate event. You know, all kidding aside, let's talk about R and Python.
I grew up when Perl was the language en vogue, so I have not yet quite managed to move my skill set over to Python, but I appreciate Python a lot, and a lot of people in our team use it. I have spent a lot of time, many quality hours back at IBM research, building models. So both of these languages, I think, are key to the tool set of data science.
One of my questions to you is, do you think, which do you prefer, open source tools like R and Python or commercial tools? What do you think that the benefits and problems with each are?
Today, the open source tools tend to be adopted faster. People tinker, people share their new algorithms and to put it out there on GitHub so other data scientists can use it and evaluate it. So I personally appreciate that very intellectually open sharing culture, and I think that resonates with the use of open source tools primarily. And so for the IT infrastructure, it's a nightmare to maintain a whole bunch of scripts that data scientists wrote in open source. It's much easier to just have this kind of solid foundation where everything works, no questions asked. But to the point that right now the data scientist is really the limiting factor and possibly the most expensive resource you have. I think people have made peace with the fact that, hey, if you want to keep your data scientists happy, because if they leave, you have a much bigger problem. And so we see the adoption of open source sneaking into environments where we didn't used to have it, because it seems to be one of the parts that make data scientists happy.
One of the other big buzzwords around the industry is storytelling with data. What's your view on storytelling with data? Do you think it's important to be able to know how to tell a story with data? And what's the value in that?
At the end of the day, it's all fun and giggles if you build cool algorithms and you have these data sets and kind of play around with it. But if you actually feel that you want to have impact, whether this in the context of a corporate job or if you volunteer for data kinds or other kind of non-profit data activities, it comes back to the point that you need to get people to change the way they make decisions. Storytelling is an important component. I prefer to talk about this as communication skills, because at the very far end of storytelling is what I often, possibly with a bit bias, dismiss as just sexy, cool things that at the end of the day I have not necessarily a lot of confidence that I believe it.
What advice would you give people who are using data preparation tools who maybe aren't as savvy in terms of what to look for? What should they be thinking about, or is it is it also a matter of subject matter expertise?
I think there is some of the latter, but there's nothing wrong with tools that make me more efficient. I love tools that help me make my job better. But I think it's part of the education process as you learn the craft, because there's a lot of, they call it data science, I think it's a lot of craft. It's like making shoes. You have to do it 2,000 times until you're actually any good at this.
So you mentioned something really interesting about education. Of course, TDWI has been educating people for 20 years. We have an event that's coming up pretty soon in October that's focused on analytics, data science, storytelling, all of that, called Accelerate. So what mistakes do you see data scientists make when they do analysis?
We don't make mistakes.
You're right, I don't make mistakes either. Where are you from? Your accent is interesting.
So I grew up in East Germany, in a small town south of Leipzig, and I then spent some time studying in Darmstadt. Ultimately, more accidental than anything, went to CO Boulder at Colorado, and that's where I took my first AI and machine learning course back in '95.
So the accent is from Colorado, but
No.
are you interested in, have you been to Seattle?
So Seattle is one of the really centers of machine learning, has been primarily because of kind of the big companies in that space, with Microsoft Research being there and Amazon. And so I have visited a few times, going and giving talks at some of these locations. It's lovely except for the weather. I'm not sure I would ever want to live there.
Yeah, but maybe you can visit there and
No,
give a
visiting
talk
is
at
great. So
Accelerate.
I'm saying it's an amazing place to be and just kind of get this energy of the place.
Yeah, and get a new accent. I don't know.
That may take a little longer than
Yeah.
I want to stay there.
I like the one that you have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, it agrees with you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And take one and action.
Well, that's the show. Thanks everyone for joining us, and remember to book your tickets to Seattle, October 16th through 18th for TDWI Accelerate.
Bringing together the brightest minds in analytics.
This wraps up episode 0-1 of our show. We'll be back with episode 0-2 soon. I'm Fern.
And I'm Fern.
Thanks again.